Good day and welcome. My name is Drake598 Shadow, and we're here today to have a little bit of a look at the Chaplain. And we are going to be playing Chapter 6 on the hardest difficulty, as we've been doing with all the other classes, just to sort of give them a fair evaluation. So we'll get stuck into that. The Chaplain is one of my favourite classes. He has a good weapon loadout and good skills. He's both useful in offense, defense, and a good support character.
That I had seen, and perhaps was the source of the visions that beset the Librarius. In the ancient Dark Angel ship, we uncovered a conservation chamber that held ancient gene seed from the Legion of the Lion, a gift of the Emperor's genius. Even as we celebrated this discovery, a terrible brood lord, the final evolution of gene stealers, assailed us, and we only vanquished it with much difficulty and loss. Our brothers came to our assistance, and with them we secured Caliban's will to ensure that no gene stealers would seize the precious gene seed.
He does have a couple of good perks available to him that are available only to him, one being the Litany of War skill, which increases that ability by 5 seconds, extending its limit by 5 seconds. He also has a perk for increasing armor penetration on the Spear of Caliban, and one for the Croceus. The Croceus is a very iconic weapon for the Chaplain. As you can see, and you may know from 40k lore, I wouldn't recommend using it at all unless you do have the perk equipped. Even then, I do find it somewhat of a lackluster weapon in this game. It doesn't give a cooldown to any of his skills, like the Force Axe from the Librarian or the Narceptium from the Apothecary. And it is also locked into either the Stormbolter or the Stormbolter MK2. So it is rather rare that you'll see someone using it. It is more common that someone will be using the Spear of Caliban or the Heavy Flamer. It is also very common for people to run this as a tanky build, taking Resilience for a 33% increase to all body parts, or a 30% increase to all body parts, as he is the last person you want to go down when you're running a party, as he is capable of resurrecting all 3 people if they are down, rather than the Tactical's ability to resurrect just 1 person. His Litany of War is on the far side there. It's his shortest cooldown, and it gives an invincibility shield to all allies, including yourself. Retribution is in the middle there, and that returns damage to the opponent that is attacking you. And the resurrect ability is on the far side there, on the far left. So he is great at support by virtue of his Litany of War. He is great in defense of the party. In his Retribution, he can easily stand there and tank a Cypher or a Broodlord for a couple of seconds when you need your party to escape. And that is a common tactic that you'll see Chaplains employing. However, do be aware on the harder difficulties, it is extremely rare that Retribution will actually kill the Broodlord or Cypher, unless you are using a Flamer or a Heavy Flamer. And even then, it is still somewhat rare unless you have your party focusing fire on that target. So, for instance, with the Spear of Caliban, you would want to offload all your shots into him, then proceed to get into close combat. Wait for him to, say, strike 1 hit if it is a Cypher. You may not want to do that in case of a Broodlord. Then use Retribution to ensure that you're getting optimized use of that skill, and it is returning damage to the foe from pretty much the time you kick it on till it wears off. And I would say start retreating 1 or 2 seconds before it does wear off, so you are out of range and quite freely start to use your weapon again. It is pretty similar in the case of a Flamer, especially on the harder difficulty. And it sounds like I already have a Cypher here, so not the best, but we should be able to deal with it. quite remember which skill, or sorry, perk I do have on him at the moment, as it could quite easily be the Litany of War skill or Resilience. I am not entirely sure. So as you can see him going into that strike there, so I popped Retribution, and I'm just standing there, and that's going to start to wear off, so I will start backing off, use the rest of my skill, my ammunition. As you can see on the harder difficulties, as I was saying, it is very rare for Retribution to really do much more than slow down the opponent, and that is definitely a bad spot. I was not expecting him to run in and charge there. So I might see how long Litany of War goes for. Yeah, I think that's just the normal cooldown, and we do have Resilience on. Now, I kind of want him to go around the other side, that is why I've done this. That should actually give me time to pop the objective and not really have to face him. Doesn't seem like he's going around all the way, however. And my abilities are almost up, so I might just proceed here. I'm not sure if that is the same Brood Lord. Sorry, Cypher. Actually, I think it is now. Just by virtue of how wounded he was. So what I might do is just tank some of this with the Litany of War and go through the portal. I should have used the heavy flamer in the first lot of this match rather than the second, coming to think of it, as I will not be able to take the turrets out that are further down. So I do apologise about that, but the heavy flamer is sort of self-explanatory. What I might do is, rather than retreating to the extraction point, like we have been doing, I'll do something similar to the assault class, and head through that portal there to equip the heavy flamer. That will cancel out my abilities, but I'll be sure to use them before I actually go in. As you can see, this guy is pretty useful, even for running solo. Yeah, great support, great offense, great as a team player and great as a solo. Just not really advisable to run him solo on the hardest difficulties, as if you do run into a sidecar, you may struggle somewhat. Same with the Brood Lord, I guess, so that is just something to be aware of. And I just say that because the Spear of Caliban, although being a great weapon, it is not the most accurate, and the Flamer, although being a great weapon, does not have any significant range. Pop Litany of War there. I do enjoy the Power Fist as a side weapon rather than the Crucius. It is fairly effective and it is quite powerful. It works on him a lot better than it does on, say, the Heavy Assault. Just by virtue of his weapon configuration, it can be easier to get that melee close combat alternation going, rather than, say, something like the Assault Cannon, where you will struggle quite a lot. And as you can see, it's a lack of real accuracy there. It does struggle with targets behind cover. The Flame would have a much easier time there. However, our next... to get to the modifier beacon, we will have to take out some active turrets, and that the Flame would really struggle with quite a bit. So we're just going to keep booking it through this map. Doing sort of as I always do, skills as necessary, not really trying to show off too much, just trying to get him as close to the objective, final objective as possible, so you can see sort of just how he runs through a mission, how tough he is, cooldowns, that sort of thing. He is probably one of the main go-tos. Him and the Chaplain and the Apothecary are the two main classes that you'll find being run in parties. You will find yourself using Litany of War quite often. It is a great skill for protecting your party. It is something that I sort of pop whenever there's a major engagement for the party and people start taking too much damage. It is ready fairly quickly, and it's not your primary defensive skill for yourself. So it is something that you can sort of feel free use as an auxiliary for your party. Also on a note with his resurrection ability, make sure you resurrect people in safety. Do not resurrect them in direct combat, as you'll find quite often they will just end up dead again, especially on the harder difficulties. Also, if you are engaged in a large conflict, do try to wait for at least one more person to go down. It is much better to wait and resurrect two people than it is to just resurrect that one. It's a little bit of cheese for you guys if you ever come to Chapter 6 there. You just pop behind that pillar and pretty easily take out that turret. Depending on your weapon configuration, the Assault class cannot do that. So we're going to try to move down to the end here. will do what I normally do and try to take out this turret and pop open the door. Although I will hang around at the end to display the flamer for a couple of extra seconds. If that does end up in a mission failure, so be it. See the war going to work there for me, preventing those explosive rounds from dealing any real damage. I'm just going to hang around here for a couple of moments, use up my abilities. As when I do change weapons, I will have to wait for them all to come up again. Pop that while I got my retribution going.
Mission confirmation received. The ship will open fire once you've evacuated the area.
Swap to that heavy flamer. As you can see, I will say the heavy flamer in this game is the most enjoyable flamer that I have seen in a game to date. It actually feels like you're using a heavy flamer. Not today, Mr. Psyker. And there we go. Psykers, as I said, are the bane to this class. But I hope you've enjoyed this little look at the Chaplain and his usefulness, toughness, skills, abilities. I may go further into depth in a later video between all the classes and look at complete weapon loadout skills. But for the moment, I have been Drake598 Shadow. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for tuning in. Feel free to drop a like or a comment down below if you have any questions, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can.